Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a financial playbook that says just about everything you've been taught about money is dead wrong. See, entrepreneur Grant Cardone argues that in a tough economy, following those old rules, save your money, avoid debt, isn't just slow. He says it's the fastest way to guarantee you stay broke. So get ready, because we're about to challenge some of your most basic beliefs about finance. Cardone's perspective pretty much flips traditional wisdom completely on its head, especially when things in the economy look, well, pretty grim. Whenever the economy gets shaky, what's the first thing we're told? Tighten your belt, save every penny, and get out of debt. It feels like the safe, responsible thing to do, right? But Grant Cardone says that's precisely the wrong move if you actually want to build real wealth. Let's just kick things off with his most famous and, let's be honest, most provocative claim. That cash you're so carefully stashing away in your savings account, he calls it trash. Yeah, you heard me right, trash. He believes it's actually losing value every single day you hold on to it. So let's break down why on earth he would say something like that. And that brings us straight to his first rule. And it's a big one. It attacks the absolute cornerstone of personal finance. He says, stop saving your money. According to Cardone, saving is a sucker's game, and the whole system is rigged against you, the saver. So here's where the perception and the reality are completely different. You think your money is sitting there safely, maybe earning a tiny little bit of interest. But what Cardone argues is that there's this invisible force that's secretly just eating away at its real value. And that invisible force, it's called inflation. It basically means that the $100 you have in the bank today is going to buy you less coffee, less gas, and fewer groceries next year. Your money is literally losing its power while it just sits there. So if you're losing, who's winning? Well, the bank is. They take your cash, they lend it out to other people multiple times over, and they make a ton of money on the interest. And what do they give you in return? A fraction of a percent. You're basically funding their wealth, not your own.
Okay, so if saving is a trap, what in the world are you supposed to do instead? Well, this leads directly to his second rule. You have to stop thinking about hoarding cash and start thinking about creating cash flow. You've got to put your money to work.
And he has a really clear three-step strategy for this. First, you invest in yourself, new skills, new knowledge, anything that makes you more valuable and able to earn more. Then you use those skills to build up your main income. And finally, and this is the absolute key, you take the profits and you buy assets that make more money, creating this amazing cycle of growth.
And this quote really gets to the heart of his discipline. For Cardone, the money you earn from your job has only one real purpose: to be a tool that buys or builds assets. You don't spend it on stuff that loses value, you use it to create brand new streams of income.
All right, this brings us to another piece of classic advice that Cardone just wants to completely demolish: the dream of owning your own home. He actually argues that for most people, it's a huge financial trap that's just disguised as an accomplishment. I mean, we're taught from the time we're kids that debt is the enemy, right? Avoid it at all costs. But what if that's not the whole picture? Cardone makes this one critical distinction that, honestly, it changes the entire game. See, he splits debt into two really simple categories. You've got bad debt. That's the money you borrow for things that just take money out of your pocket, like a fancy car or a new TV. But then there's good debt, and that's a tool you use to buy assets that put money into your pocket, like a rental property that your tenants are paying off for you.
And look, he absolutely lives by this. The guy owned thousands and thousands of cash-flowing apartment units for decades before he ever bought a personal home for himself. Think about that. His investments, his assets are what bought his house, not his day job.
So how does any of this apply to the tough economy we're in right now? Well, here's the thing. Cardone doesn't see a crisis. He sees a massive, massive opportunity, especially in real estate. You've seen the news, right? Interest rates have shot through the roof, and that dream of owning a home, for millions of people, it's suddenly turned into a financial nightmare. It's pushing them out of the market to buy and forcing them directly into the rental market. And this, he says, creates a perfect storm for people who invest in rental properties. You have this huge wave of people who are now forced to rent. You have banks who actually prefer to lend money for apartment buildings because they produce cash flow. And you have major demographic shifts that are all pointing towards renting. The demand is just surging. Now you're probably thinking, that sounds great, but I don't have millions of dollars. Here's the thing, you don't need it. To really see how this works, let's break down Cardone's very first deal. It's an amazing lesson in how to start small.
His first deal was this modest single-family home. The price tag?
$78,000. Now, here is the crucial part. He didn't drain his savings. He used that good debt we were talking about, and he only had to put down $3,000 of his own money. And get this, that one little property started generating $2,400 a year in pure passive cash flow. That means he made all of his investment back in a little over a year, and he still owned the asset. Once he found that formula, he just repeated it over and over and over again.
So, what's the biggest lesson to take away from all this? It's not just a financial strategy. It's a fundamental shift in your entire mindset. It's about learning to see the world as an investor, not as a consumer. And according to Cardone, it is all powered by one thing.
Ultimately, his entire philosophy is fueled by an absolutely insane work ethic. You have to be willing to outwork everyone around you just to generate that initial capital. But then you invest that capital to create cash flow, and that's what frees you from trading your time for money. So the real question is, are you using your money just to buy things, or are you using it to buy your freedom?